What is the process for collecting and returning personal property prior to release?
Okay, first of all, the property on a person who is arrested is typically collected at the time of the arrest, well before the release, before there's even an issue about release. And the stuff we take is basically because it's valuable, we don't want it to get lost or damaged. It's potentially stealable by another inmate in the jail. In many cases, we take the stuff that's potentially injurious to the person or herself or to another inmate if somebody decides to use a knife as a weapon or whatever. And every bit of that stuff is placed in a property bag. The money separated, or the money and the valuable jewelry, etc., is separated, kept in one place. It's very secure. The other property is kept in a more general area that's also secure. I know this may come up, so I'll say many people are arrested with cars in their possession, and cars aren't exactly personal property, but there's many rules about what to do with a car when a person is about to be arrested and the car is still there. It depends on whether it's legally parked, whether the person has a preference as to whether it's stored or left parked legally and locked. So we do different things with cars. In terms of returning the property, basically, especially at a station, we have 23 sheriff stations, and there's a jailer each one on all 3 shifts, and inmates are released as they come in and become available for release, either to bail out, bond out, or citation, or own recognizance release, or because their charges were dropped. And in each case, the jailer is responsible for returning the property. They pull out the property bag, which has the personal property, and the bag that has the money. There's a certain amount that goes in a different safe, as I said. And they go through the property with the inmate and the booking slip, which had the property listed initially, make sure that the inmate's satisfied that everything's there, so we have him sign or her sign the booking slip upon release so that they know they've got all their stuff. And that includes the money, which we count or have them count in front of us, so we can agree that when they came in, they had $200, and when that's what was available to them. I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay.
Unless there are questions later.
Okay. What actions are taken when you release someone from custody? I know you're talking about the question before was about personal property.
Right.
What else is done beyond return whatever personal property you can return?
Yeah. Actually, lots of things.
You kind of outlined.
Yeah, there's a lot more than just the property business. First of all, we have to make sure that who they say they are, or with their driver's license makes it look like they say they are, because there are many forged licenses out there. So we do a lot of work to verify their identification, or their identity. Whatever they're arrested for, there's a possibility that if they're wanted for something else, and since they're in our custody, it would be irresponsible if we didn't check them for warrants, check to see if they're wanted by some other agency, even out of state, let alone in California. We check to make sure there are no additional charges. The deputy writes a report on what the arrest was for, and of course sometimes prisoners commit violations in the jail that also constitute additional charges, so we check all that. We assess their suitability for release in terms of health. That's done both at the time of the arrest, which I think is going to be question 5, but also during their stay in custody, because we have frequent, mandated by law, periodic checks of the prisoner's welfare while they're in custody. We have to prepare the paperwork that allows them to be legally released and documents why they were released, which can include processing either bail money or a bond on the part of a bondsman, or a citation that we might be writing them so that they can sign it and promise to appear in court, or documentation about releases on their own recognizance, which are those approved by a court. And then what I described earlier, also before the release, we return their property. So there's all this stuff that's going on during the time they're in custody and while they're being prepared for release.
All right, next question. What should family members or friends know and do prior to picking up a loved one at a substation or any station? What do they, how can, you're never prepared for something like this happening, but what do they need to know? What would be helpful to them?
I have rated these questions, and this is the hardest one to answer. I've been on 35 years, and it's difficult to know exactly how to answer this in only a few minutes, because, as I mentioned, the booking process is fairly complex. The release process can be complex. Aspects of their stay in custody at a station can affect the answer to this question. So I'll try to be responsive and be happy to answer any specific questions if I fail in this. Obviously, if the family member knows that the criminal justice system is complex and there's a whole lot of stuff we have to do when a person's in custody that seems ministerial and annoying and administrative, but it's required by law, and it's important to protect the public and to protect the prisoner. So there's some degree of complication to it, and at the point where a member of the public, a family member, someone arrested, calls the station, I can hear it now, I've seen it, I've been part of it. Occasionally we're busy. Occasionally we talk as though we are when we're not so, but occasionally we are very busy, and I know that people are not always satisfied with what they get out of a sheriff's station on the phone. I oversee 8 patrol stations, and I've worked at 3 of them in my career, and I know that there are always improvements we can make about our phone work. So to answer this question fair and square, I'll say, and I wish I could have said this 6 months ago to everybody on the planet, but if you call a station about a person in custody and you're interested in knowing when they're going to get out or what's going to happen to them, whether they're going to be transferred to another facility, I mean, these are all complicated factors that the jailer may not even know at the time you call. And if you feel as though you're not getting good information, I'll probably be killed for this by my watch commander, but here goes. I'm going to say, if you're in this situation in the future and you're not sure you're getting the right dope, you should call the watch commander or ask for the watch commander. We've trained everybody at stations that the watch commander is the highest ranking guy on the shift at the time, and that woman or man is going to be the best one to ask a general question. They won't know the answer, I guarantee you that, but they'll be empowered to find out the answer to the question. And so if you feel that there's been a miscommunication with the jailer, who's the one who decides about the release procedure, or with somebody who's trying to help you on the first phone line that you get, which is generally a deputy or civilian who mans the complaint desk, if you're not satisfied with the kind of answer you're getting, you can ask for either the watch sergeant, who's the second in command at a station, 24 hours a day, doesn't matter, day or night, the watch sergeant and the watch commander are the 2 people running the place. And if you think something needs to be checked out about information you've got that doesn't seem responsive, or doesn't seem logical, or doesn't answer your question, you can ask for that person, and they'll ask the jailer, and if there is a communications breakdown, hopefully they'll be able to sort it out. So in answer to the question, what should you do prior to picking up a loved one? Obviously, coming to the station and hoping that the release will be prompt may work, but hoping that the release will be prompt can't always be fulfilled. So if you have questions about the actual booking procedure for a given inmate, I'm sorry, oh, that means I got 30 seconds to go, then one option is to ask the watch commander for help.
Okay. One quick question, I'm going to give you a little action here. What is the screening process utilized at the substation for people who may be acting in a bizarre manner, but not in a dangerous manner? They're not hurting anybody per se, or hurting themselves, but they're just hearing voices, or, so it's not, at the point where you know this person really has issues. It could be kind of borderline. So how do you deal with that?
Well, Ronda answered a lot of this question. First of all, when inmates are arrested, they're screened for medical problems and for intoxication issues, and it's all documented. We ask them questions, and we also record our own observations about whether they're acting bizarre or intoxicated or under the influence of anything. During the time they're there, we consistently check to see how they're acting, and in many cases at night they're sleeping. In other cases they're not, but deputies receive a lot of training, so do the custody assistants that run the station jails, in what Ronda talked about. What's bizarre? What's too bizarre? What's so bizarre that it may indicate that the person's either gravely disabled or unable to care for their safety, or unable to care for the safety of someone else. That screening goes on during the time they're in custody, and if by the time they're releasable at a station, there are no obvious issues that the jailer, nor the watch sergeant, nor any of the deputies there can see in terms of how bizarre the behavior is. I mean, we're not checking personality quirks here, we're checking gravely disabled, unable to care for safety, either that of yourself or another. We're going to be releasing them. But we do have a pretty extensive, and I guess it would look bureaucratic, but I took you through every step process for making sure that the prisoner is as safe as possible when we release.
Okay. Thank you.